It's Toronto's podcast on the Canada's Podcast Network.
Today, we're going to meet up with Spencer Waugh, who is CEO of AceAge, a healthcare technology company. So Spencer, welcome to Canada's podcast. And, before we go much further, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, that 3 or 4 minute sort of life story, if you like.
Life story, sure. Well, thank you.
With an entrepreneurial focus, okay?
First and foremost, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. My name is Spencer Waugh. I'm the CEO of AceAge, and we build an in-home medication dispenser, helping people take their medication properly, independently, safely in their own homes. And I started this journey of this company 5.5 years ago, as my first step into being an entrepreneur. But the entrepreneurial spirit has always been part of my life. Where my father was an entrepreneur, in the healthcare technology and face recognition spaces. Aunts, uncles, siblings have always. There's that familial interest.
I have a lot of that in my background too.
So it's interesting to be that entrepreneurship, being in charge of your own future is a comfort zone for me.
Are we wired differently? I mean, you've got lots of friends that aren't entrepreneurs. I maybe have, but are we wired differently? Do you sense a different persona, an entrepreneurial persona versus other personas? I mean, I'm always curious.
So I think everyone has the capacity to be an entrepreneur, but I think you have to be a little nuts to take the plunge.
Mm-hmm. Well, why were you nuts? Well, I mean, what made you decide to become an entrepreneur? You had a job before that. I mean, why step out?
I did. I was, well paid in the financial services sector. Very comfortable, had a good lifestyle, but it ultimately wasn't fulfilling for me. I would go in, I would work my 9 to 5 and have a very regular, standardized life, which is attractive to a lot of people. It's and say you write it down on paper, you go, that seems like a pretty nice way of living your life. But I can definitely say the last 5.5 years, not one day has been the same.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of ups, a lot of downs. Has been definitely a roller coaster where I know there's days where I'll come back from whatever meetings I was having, and I'll be on the moon. Having had such a great time doing whatever it is, but then there's also days where you're kicked to the curb. Especially not so much now, but early on when we were in the idea stage of trying to that where it was, this was my vision, this is what I want to build, this is how we can help people in their own homes, going around and getting people to subscribe and believe in it. It's I think when I was mentioning that you have to be a little nuts to go down the route of being an entrepreneur, and especially in an environment where you have to raise money, raise capital to be able to hire the team to execute on what you want to build. It's a plunge. You're jumping into the deep end, but you don't really have a full appreciation of how deep that water is until you're in it.
So I looked at your background on LinkedIn. I mean, you worked for international companies, and you do business internationally, I know. So why settle here? In the health business, there are bigger centers than Toronto's. That's Hamilton behind me. Your Guelphs. Than than sort of Toronto, Southwestern Ontario hub, if you like, which is what I look at it as. Why here? Why didn't you go somewhere else?
So that's a great question. I did have my start in healthcare and pharmaceuticals at a large pharma company in Germany, and that was a great experience. I did personally prefer the lifestyle of Canada, and having so many close friends and family that are an important support structure to have as an entrepreneur in Canada. Is what brought me back. Did I consider Canada as a country for starting a healthcare technology company? Not so much on the healthcare system, definitely on the skilled personnel that we have here. Our team is rock solid, from our software developers to our product managers to our QA team and our ops team. The skill of Canadians is very, very impressive. But as for the healthcare world in Canada, we're operating in Canada. We have devices deployed across our country. If we were headquartered anywhere else, would I be launching in Canada? Very likely not. It's we have a healthcare system that isn't conducive to new innovations. The payer system is very, very difficult to navigate, and so we have majority of our business coming out of European countries, and I'll see that for the foreseeable future, unless we're in the COVID-19 pandemic right now, that there is changes coming.
Maybe there was some health system restructuring that comes out of that, I think.
Well, Trudeau recently announced the $240 million investment into healthcare technologies. The details of that are still to be uncovered, but that is very promising in terms of responding to the crisis that we're in right now on bringing our country forward. So I hope I'll eat my words this time next year that Canada is all of a sudden caught up with the rest of the world in terms of the adoption of healthcare technologies and being able to provide healthcare services into people in the comfort of their own homes. But we'll see on that. But that's all to summarize. When I have started in Canada, for this labor, absolutely not for the healthcare environment.
So let's skew around a bit to you again. So you've been doing entrepreneurship for 5 years. What's the best thing or things about being an entrepreneur? I mean, that you just didn't experience anywhere else at all.
So I think the best things have been in the recent years as we become a more and more successful company. At the start, it's definitely a drag, if you will. It's to get going. It's now when we were talking before we started recording, it's I have meetings after meetings after meetings. There's I get to interact with very interesting people. That aspect is great. Early on, it's when we're an idea. I look at my calendar and I'd have 2 meetings throughout the week. It's now it's I have 2 meetings before I have my morning coffee.
Well, you're also doing business in Europe, so like me, that's probably why.
Yeah, it's their working hours are much different, and if we're also working in Pacific regions, it's I'll sometimes have meetings at 9 o'clock at night before their morning coffee.
So what's the greatest challenge you face in your business today?
Well, today, being in the pandemic, it's a very interesting time for us, where when we have a healthcare technology solution that's never been needed more than it is today. But with the market downturn, with the stock market recession
Yes.
that's being used today. Um, VC markets have dried up. Now, the immediate reaction of the investment community was check in on their existing investments, make sure that their deployable capital is going to protect their existing positions.
Mm-hmm.
So we were at a stage where we had our Series A term sheet signed. It was almost entirely funded, and we had an expected close date of March 31st. And it was 2 weeks prior to that, right after one of the largest downturns in TSX history, where we were talking to the venture capitalists that we were working with, and they said, "Look, we got to back out. We had some funding calls, some cash redemptions, and they no longer had the ability of financing our Series A." And so that, of course, was a gut punch, to a company that also, because of the pandemic, we now have a responsibility to get our device out to as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Losing that round definitely has had a negative impact on our ability to scale to meet the important demand that we have.
If you could go back in time, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Oh, my 20-year-old self, I would start this company earlier.
That's interesting. That's good. That's good. That's good. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever received that sort of stays there? You've got we hit certain mentors, and somebody drops that kind of advice that you just say, "Whoa," and you keep using it. I mean,
so I think one of the very first pieces of advice I ever learned was when I was, I could say, was in high school. That was before I had ever done any fundraising, before I'd ever done any sales.
mm-hmm.
I was working as a lifeguard, and part of being a lifeguard is once a year we did a swim the lake fundraiser, where we did enough, as a team, enough laps of our pool to equate to the length of Lake Ontario. And so I was calling, friends' parents, asking for, hey, for every length that I swim, will you donate 50 cents? So I'll swim 100 lengths, it'll be $50 for you. 200 lengths, as it goes on and on and on. So I called one friend's dad, who is, I'd always known was like a strong salesman. Very successful in his business, actually an entrepreneur himself. And so I call him up, I tell him about the program. He said, "Great, I'm in." And I kept telling him about the program. He's like, and I said, "There's this other thing that's going to be beneficial, these other things." And he said, "Spencer, what are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You already sold me, get out of the room." I'm like, oh, the second you get the yes, it's like, great, meeting over. Glad I got exactly what I needed from this conversation, from this meeting. I'll see you next. And I would have been 16 years old at that point in time. But I apply that to every meeting that I now go into, which is, what's the point of this meeting? What is the desired outcome? The second you get that, could be a 60-minute time slot or a 2-hour time slot, and you get that in 20 minutes, great. We got exactly what we need to do. See you next time.
So just another kind of advice thing is, when things happen that you don't expect, okay, how do you recommend people handle those kind of situations? And I think probably in the last 5 years, you've hit a few of those. So.
Well, in a startup, you have to always be able to roll with the punches.
Yeah.
It's you have to be nimble. You have to be at the table to to have the discussions. It's so there's a certain level of red tape that's necessary as you grow. To go, this is our structure, this is our format, this is how we do things. no, I would never want to have that be able to get in the way of progress. So it's I guess the piece of advice I can have on that is just to say that it's a necessity. It's you have to do it without question. It's opposed to stopping and thinking of how you could possibly do it. It's just you got to do it.
So some what we term rapid fire questions. Don't think about them. Just give it a quick answer. If you weren't doing for what you're doing now, what would you be doing instead?
Kite surfing.
Kite surfing. Okay.
Yeah, no, I am actually as far as what I'll be doing. Honestly, no idea. It's being 5.5 years into being an entrepreneur.
You'd be kite surfing while you thought about it.
I think I've come far enough that it's made me unemployable. Being at the helm of this rapid growth company. I couldn't imagine anything else.
So I don't know whether you're a reader, but what book are you currently reading, listening to? Is there any books that you think people should grab and absorb?
So my favorite book is the 80-20 principle.
Yeah.
It's all about efficiency. That 80% of your revenue will come from 20% of your customers. So that is the book that I would highly recommend anyone to read.
Okay. Are you a morning or a night person?
Pardon?
You a morning or a night person?
Both. No, I anything more than 6 hours of sleep a night is too much sleep.
If you had to pick one word, only one word to describe yourself, what would it be?
Gregarious.
Okay. Anything keeping you up at night these days?
Anything keeping me up at night these days? It's I make sure to keep a strong, well, balance is the wrong word. I definitely don't keep balance in my life, but I make sure to stay active. So by the time I get to bed every night, I'm exhausted, and so I generally sleep pretty well.
What's your favorite place in the world?
Somewhere new.
Somewhere new. That's interesting. That's a new one. I haven't had that. Okay. And let's just do our last one. I don't really listen to this, but if you did, then the last one, I don't know with the COVID thing, I don't know with isolation is anything that people would look for, but there's a small tropical island in the middle of the ocean with just one phone booth. Remember what that was? No internet. Okay. We drop you off there with no technology, nothing at all. At any time you can use the phone on the island to call the boat to come and pick you up. How long do you last, and what would you do?
Oh, geez, this is a great opportunity to stick with that kite surfing theme.
Yeah, I was thinking that myself.
Perfectly.
Okay, I think that's about it. I mean, we love people to be able to connect with others. I mean, doesn't mean you need to give them personal information, but if people need, listen to this and want to connect with you, how can they do that?
Well, I would love to hear from you. Email me at spencer@aceage.com. That's SPENCER @AceAge ACEAGE.com.
Okay, Spencer, that was really great. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. It's been fun. Good to know you.
Yeah, great to meet you.